welcome back gang. Today I need your help to identify this old and crusty but probably quite rare KYOSHO. As you can see, it's a Nitro model, a little engine on the back, and quite interestingly, which I haven't seen before and maybe you can help me with, it does have this chain drive. So you've got just a chain on a clutch bell driving that spare gear. I think it goes through a bit of a gearbox before it turns the wheel, because the output shaft is under that spur, and you've got a differential in there as well. Right, jumped ahead a bit there. Let's do the basics. Let's get the wheelbase, which we've got at just under 23 centimeters, so more like 22.7. You got the track, which we got at 21.5 centimeters. And the overall length with that engine hanging out the back, including the exhaust, is coming in at 42.3. And we'll get a weight on this as well. And that's 1511 grams, so 1.5 kilograms, which is pretty light, I guess, for a Nitro. I don't know what scale you'd call this. I think back in the day they referred to these as 1/12 scale, but let me know if you know what it is, because we don't know what it is yet. So let's get back to it. On the back we have an Enya engine that is turning over. There's a plug in it and it's hardly got any compression, so I can't imagine that running. It's quite a little dainty engine, made in Japan, if you can just about make out on the back plate there. Do we have a size? An 09. On the back there it says 094 IV, so 094, so maybe a Mark 409 engine. It looks about an 09 size, so a little thing. Look at that tiny little intake, and the carburetor, and a mixture screw here, and the sort of linkage for that throttle, I think, is, you can't always see what I can see here, which is a shame, but that there's a sort of linkage for the throttle that should be between these two, a sort of claw shape. Yeah, that claw moves up and down and turns that linkage, and the carburetor actually is free in opening and closing, so that's unusual, as in it's old, it's not seized, but unfortunately there is hardly any compression in that. Right, let's have a look at that clutch bell. So you've got a tooth clutch bell, a bit like a chainsaw. There, it's a bit of a chainsaw arrangement here. I think this may be for starting it. You put a starter, a bump starter with a big O-ring around that as a pulley. That'll get your engine started. But you do have the centrifugal clutch in there, so it's of an era where we had clutches. You've got a tensioner bearing here, not turning. Maybe it was meant to turn, maybe it wasn't. And then going into that gearbox. And let's give it a tap. I think this is an alloy gearbox. Yep, so that's a metal affair in there with a differential, because if I hold that spur gear, yep, that goes the other way and the other way. So metal gearbox, nice. alloy engine mounts. I wonder what's going on in here, because this is a gearbox gear cover, so there's presumably an arrangement of gears underneath that, and that says KYOSHO on it here, which is nice. So moving forward, you've got some more alloy on that shock mounting position. You have these alloy trailing arms, which was quite common in this era as a suspension design. It's quite a nice suspension design, almost using the drive shaft as a lateral member, then a trailing arm, and a quite vertically placed shock. So that trailing arm piece actually is quite nice. It's a nice piece of alloy all the way over there. So it's obviously all grubby and crusty now, but you have to try and imagine what it could look like cleaned up. And I don't know, if you guys are lucky, maybe I'll clean it up and show you at the end of the video. There's some nice metal shock absorbers there. Gold anodized, alloy filled. Still functioning quite well with adjustable collars. So that's a nice little feature. You've got a dilly little fuel tank. Does go down to about here. But yeah, that's a small little fuel tank. Now I don't know if this piece doesn't look very KYOSHO-y. Looks like someone's made that, but I'm not certain. That's what I'm showing you guys. If you had one of these, if you know what the model is, I haven't been able to find out yet. And here's another look at that big trailing arm pin there. And this is the suspension arc. So read into that what you will. As you can see, as it goes up through the arc, the wheel does move forward a significant amount. But I think in this range, it's a pretty effective bump absorption arc for that, and a well-placed shock. Remember, these are the early days of radio control buggies. These were where these designs were being experimented and tested and developed into what we know today. Right, going back underneath, the metal seems to stop here, although this is quite a pretty and nice looking arrangement, and we go to a plastic tub which does the front, and then back to more metal here. So this was another common feature of this era, which is a similar trailing arm arrangement but for the front. So if you can watch that working, you've got your major pivot here, same pivot for both sides, although they are independent. So this buggy does have independent suspension all round. And this trailing arm with the vertical shock absorber, but as you can see, it also arcs forward, and as it goes through the travel, the steering arm pulls the steering in. So you do have that quite substantial bump steer. However, in the initial range of movement, probably fairly effective. In greater ones, you've got the strong bump steer and the changing arc. In fact, if you look on the camera, you can see how much inward that pulls the wheel and back. So there'll be a substantial steering effect as that goes through the travel. Bit of a side profile. The tub chassis is quite a good design actually, you know, providing a lot of lateral stiffness, and the housing what it needs to. I quite like that cutout for the steering arms there. From a design perspective, the vertical aspect of this provides a lot of stiffness, and it's all integrated into this one piece. That's quite cool. Look at this suspension from the top. You've got these shock towers, no bracing across the top. You can see those move slightly inwards, so that would be an immediate point of improvement. They've had the one pivot across the bottom, and having one across the top would have, you know, eliminated that this inward nonsense, because I suspect when you watch these move, you'll almost see it all flex. Yeah, you can see that move a few millimeters in. Oh, that would have been an easy little modification maybe. Beautiful dampers though, nice dainty alloy, gold anodized, oil filled with adjustable collars. Quite pretty there. I also like this central steering crank, integrated body post. So yeah, some nice design features. Obviously thought about this from an engineering perspective substantially. And I think that's what I always liked about KYOSHO versus Tamiya, is that you felt a bit more real engineering went into the design. We've got a big axle spacer here, which gives you that type of steering where the pivot's here but the wheel moves out here, so you get that Ackerman effect where one wheel moves a bit more than the other. Look at that, look at the angle there versus the angle there. Although that could also be regarding the position of the steering arms themselves, which have quite a substantial Ackerman position on that, but that I'm not going to go into it. But you get, this is the idea of it. There's different angles, which can be excellent because the inner radius is tighter than the outer radius when the car is turning. Okay, let's lift off the radio tray. Bit of a plasticky type affair. I'm not sure how it's meant to be held down, but I'm sure you can appreciate having your radio gear covered is quite useful in an off-road RC and has long been lost. What we got under here? Some vintage Futaba gear. I mean, that stuff doesn't look that old. The S128 servos and the R102GR receiver. That would place it at the sort of early 80s. I think firmly in the 80s, not the 70s. That's your throttle linkage. Can you see that going? Which is all working. And this is your steering linkage, which I think the servo's jammed up. Oh no, it's going now. There you go. I quite like how that's arranged in the tub chassis. It's good, and having the battery pack further forward. What's this? Oh, we'll just have a quick look at the wheels and tyres because they probably help substantially identify it. Look at that, you've got the hex on the outside there. I've not seen that before. The hex is on the outside of the wheel, almost if the wheel is backwards. Maybe the wheel is backwards. Quite possibly so. It's a split rim. Those screws do look like the two pieces come apart. The fronts are a split rim too, and they are on with the hex on the inside, so possibly those wheels are on backwards. Not sure. That's the sort of thing we need help with. And it looks like an original wheel. It says Bridgestone, which is common. It says KYOSHO here, and it says 350-20-KR4. That's the tread pattern. They're still in good nick, those. Not perished, which is great. And that's the wheel design, which looks like the classic Fuchs style wheel found on Beetles and Porsches. Couple of other features. We've got this front bumper upturned. At first I thought that was just bent up, but it does look to to be the design of that bumper, I think. And there's 2 holes for screws here and those slots there, so I'm not sure what went on that or how it went on, but that's the bumper. And then I noticed this cam thing. I wondered, what's that? Then I thought, presses down on the chain there. So this is the brake. It's not connected up yet, but this plastic cam lever just pushes down on the chain directly. Oh, it's quite effective brake. There's quite a lot of resistance that puts on there. So that was the brake. Give you a little rolling movement there. A bit lumpy, isn't it? And have a look at that. That's just the crust that's fallen off it during making this video. Who wants to see it cleaned up? Well, there you go. If you can help me tell what it is, I'd like to know, and I might give that a nice clean tonight and show you what it looks like. I'm sure you can agree it's quite a pretty RC. Nice proportions, nice designs, nice engineering, and that would look lovely cleaned up and be quite interesting to see how it goes with this weight hanging off the back, independent suspension. And here's a drop test too. Oh, that's not too bad, is it? That's not bad at all. I'm quite impressed for a basic RC early from the day. Yeah, very impressed. Let me know what you think. I'm glad to share it with you.